Hello, awesome fourth graders. Welcome to another edition of Fab in Fourth, Mathematicians Virtual Learning. Our learning target today is that we can write fractions that add up to one or a whole. A quick review from our last lesson is that a unit fraction is one single unit or one part of a whole. Each of these represents a unit of the whole, a part of the whole. If I were to ask you, what is the unit fraction for this whole? You would look at one of those parts and say, this is one out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. So the unit fraction for this whole candy bar, if you were to pretend that's a candy bar, a unit fraction for that candy bar is 1/5. It is one unit, one part out of 5. We know from our last lesson that you can add up all of those individual units, right, to find the whole. 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5. 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5 represents the whole. We know that that can be written as a product of a whole number and a unit fraction. I'm going to write my unit fraction. I think of multiplication when I hear product, and now I'm going to check how many groups of 1/5 were needed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is 5 groups of 1/5, right? Remember, we learned multiplication means groups of. That equals 5/5, which if I were to eat all 5 of these pieces of this candy bar, I would have eaten the whole thing. Anytime your numerator, your top part of your fraction, equals your denominator, it is the whole, or it equals 1. To move on to our learning target again today, now that we know all those very important details and the important vocabulary, today we're working on how can we figure out how to write fractions that add up to the whole. I'm going to keep this same candy bar put together as best as I can here. And I'd like you to look and see, what if I were to write this first part of the whole, these 2 unit fractions, 1/5 plus 1/5 is 2/5. What were if I were to write that down and then say to you plus this part of the candy bar and ask you, what would that fraction be if my goal was to end up with the whole candy bar? 2/5 plus how many fifths would equal the whole, or 5/5? Let's look at my visual. If I can't do it using mental math, I bet you these individual unit fraction parts will help. 2/5 plus 1/5, 2/5, 3/5. When I put these 3/5 together with this, these 2/5, it will give me 5/5. So the missing fraction that would go here would be 3/5. 2/5 plus 3/5 is 5/5. Our learning target today is, if you are given one of these fractions, can you figure out, using a visual or a model or using mental math, can you figure out that missing fraction? I'd like us to look at a few more samples. In case my little pieces are hard for you to learn from at home, we're going to switch over to a different screen. Thank you for your patience. This sometimes just takes a moment. I'm going to switch over to a different example here and talk through together. We are looking to figure out what fractions add up to 1 whole. Okay, using what we've learned about unit fractions, we will be able to figure this out together. Here's an example. We're looking at our model here, and there is another pointer going on, so I'm going to remove mine. They're looking at, if I have shaded in 4/5, how many more fifths will be needed to make a whole? They colored it in red to show us that we need 1/5 to be added to 4/5 to fill in the whole. When the numbers in the numerator add to make the number in the denominator, you have 1 whole. 4/5 plus 1 more fifth is 5/5, which equals the whole. Let's look at another example. They've shaded in 5/8, 5 out of 8 pieces in this whole. The question is, how many more eighths are needed to make it 8/8 or 1 whole? Aha, 3/8, because 5/8, the blue part of the model, plus 3/8 is a whole. We now have 7/12 colored in blue. Try to beat it. How many of those white squares, or how many more 12ths would equal 1? If you said 5/12, you would be awesome and right. Way to go, rock star. Because 7/12 plus 5/12 equals 1. Switching back to our doc cam. Thank you for your patience. It is coming. Switching back to our doc cam. Hopefully this reminds you a little bit of what we learned in algebra, and we are learning that all of this math is connected, isn't it? A lot of what we have learned in previous chapters and units helps us with later success. So if you think back to when we learned problems like this, you all learned how to use mental math and to figure out 3 plus what unknown value is 5. I bet you're at home right now thinking, of course, B equals 2. Whoop, whoop. Way to go if you got that right. We are now working with fractions, but it is the same concept. Okay, now that you have seen a few models, let's do a couple without a model. If I said to you, we are working with thirds, 1/3 plus what fraction would give you a whole or 3/3? Let's think about this. 1/3 plus how many more thirds would give you 3/3? If you're having a hard time thinking about that, you could draw the model. The denominator tells me the number of equal parts in a whole. I know I have 1/3. How many more thirds are needed? How many more units or unit fractions are needed for the whole? 1/3, 2/3. 1/3 plus 2/3 gives me 3/3 or a whole. Let's look at our workbook page for today. You're doing a very nice job of listening. Awesome, 4th graders. I have to zoom way out because my, oh my, look at all of those fraction bars. However, it really does help to be on the right page. LOL, right? Good grief. The librarian puts 6 equal piles of returned books on the cart for Lou and Henry to reshelve. They also drew fraction bars. If you're right now thinking, what page is she on? What page is she on? Don't worry, please just listen as we talk through, and then I will tell you the page to join us on. Listen and watch. On each sixth bar, circle 2 groups of sixths to show one way that Lou and Henry could share the work. Each bar should show a different possibility, then complete the equation next to each bar to show their shares. Before you even look at your own workbook pages, I want to make sure that we know they drew each of these equal length. That is because we are looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways of showing the exact same thing. I wanted to be sure that you know that, because otherwise this page can be very confusing. Okay, so we are looking at lots of different ways of showing the same whole 6 sixths. Now that you know that, please open up in your workbooks to page 256. And like we do in the classroom, I wrote that right there so that you can find it. I'm going to give you a minute to find page 256. If you're there, please just sit patiently. We are pretending that this is a showing how many total books they have on a shelf. Let's pretend it's a shelf. We know that means in the whole shelf there are 6 out of 6, or 1 whole. Lou and Henry are going to put all of these books back on the librarian's shelf, and they want to know, what are some different ways that we can equal 6 sixths? Let's find one possibility. A first suggestion they give us is 2 groups of sixths. So let's try groups of 2. Lou's gonna share 2 sixths. That's when they say share, that means like their share or their amount they have to put back on shelves. The wording on this page is confusing. So Lou's share, or Lou's part of the job, okay, what Lou's gonna put away is 2 sixths. So if Lou puts away 2 sixths, how much does Henry have to put away? Hopefully you're thinking 4. Because 2 sixths plus 4 sixths is all of the books on that shelf. Lou's share, Henry's share equals the whole, and we have figured out how to add up fractions to equal a whole. Let's look at another possibility, still working with 6 sixths. What could we say is Lou's share or Lou's job this time? Normally I'd call on one of you awesome rockstar mathematicians, but this time I'll make it up. What if we say Lou is gonna put away, or Lou's share is 3 sixths? What would Henry's share be? Or what would Henry's job be? If you said 3 sixths, nice job. That's half and half, right? They split the job, each took their equal share. 3 6 plus 3 6 gives us 6 sixths. Next part, again, working with the same whole, right? If Lou takes care of, or Lou's share is 4 sixths, what would Henry's share have to be? 1 6, 2 6. Nice job if you figured that out. Next one, again, it's 6 sixths. If you're feeling pretty good about it, you can go on, but please stop here. And if you need a little more guidance and support, let's keep going together. 6 sixths Okay, let's say that Lou this time does a lot of the work. Her share is most of the load. She takes care of 5/6. How much would Henry have left to do? He would need to shelve only 1/6 because 5/6 plus 1/6 is 6/6. Last part, 6/6 is our whole. Let's say this time Lou's tired from doing so much work last time. She only does 1/6. Her share is 1/6 of the whole. That means Henry is going to put away how many books, or what fraction of the whole? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/6. Whew. Take a stretch if you need to. Nice job listening. We're almost done with this part of our lesson for today. Let me zoom in. It says find the unknown addend. We know an addend is one of the values that we are adding. This is an addend, 1/6. 5/6 is an addend. When we add those addends together, we get the sum or the answer. So looking down here, they're asking us to write lots of different ways to write the same thing. One whole, they're telling you, is 7 out of 7 parts. We're not working with sixths, we are working with sevenths. So they're saying, if you have 1/7, how many more sevenths? Let's just use this as our fraction bar. We have way too many lines going on. 1/7 plus how many sevenths would give us 7/7? Mental math tells me 1 plus 6 equals 7. So if I were to add these up, 6/7 plus 1/7 is 1 whole. You're hopefully noticing that when we add fractions, the denominator, the bottom stays the same, and we add our numerators. 6 plus 1 is 7. 1/7 plus 6/7 is 7/7. Let's look at another one together. 1 whole, they're telling you this time is made up of 4 parts. If we eat 4 out of 4, we have eaten the whole. 3/4 plus what fraction will give us 4/4? Almost like we're working backwards here. 3/4 plus how many fourths is 4/4? 3 plus 1 will give me 4. So 3/4 plus 1/4 is the whole. 3/4 plus 1/4 is 4/4. Your assignment for the rest of today, because our lesson was longer today, was to please finish numbers 5 through 10. You will not have a way to turn this in, okay? But we will begin on Thursday with our small group lessons, going over these numbers. Okay, so your assignment for Wednesday, April Fool's Day, April 1st, is to complete numbers 5 through 10 in your workbook on page 256. If you get stuck, you can go back and re-listen to this video. You could also email me and ask for help. I'm so happy to help you. Thank you for being awesome listeners. I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow at our morning meeting, unless we have conferences set up today. Bye-bye.